Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. As part of the ISCA ICAN webinar series, today we are talking about going beyond the ICAP requirements, and we have Sheryl Bass with us today. She is our immediate past president for ISCA and also a college and career counselor for Linn-Mar High School and Kirkwood Community College. So thank you for joining us. And before I turn it over to Sheryl, just feel free to ask questions in the chat or raise your hand, and Sheryl will address those either throughout her presentation or at the end. And thank you for joining us. Sheryl, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Britt. As Britt said, I am Sheryl Bass. I'm a college career transition counselor at Linn-Mar. Prior to my position with Kirkwood, I was a school counselor at Linn-Mar for the last 6 years, and I have been working with our ICAP team for that long. Hopefully I can share some information about just what we've been doing at Linn-Mar and how we support our students. I am going to start with kind of giving an overview of the ICAP requirements. I know some people are newer to it or just kind of wondering how they can meet the different requirements for ICAP. So I want to make sure that you have all the information to help you do your job the best way that you can. So I also want to make this pretty informal. If you have questions along the way, or if you want me to stop or anything, just feel free to type those in the chat and I'll answer them as we go. So I just wanted to share Iowa code. I'm kind of a nerd and like reading code just to understand what exactly it is that we're tasked to do with the individual and career and academic plan. And code really actually gives us a lot of information about the requirements for ICAP. So a few things that you'll see on here that I want to point out. One is that we are working to identify students' post-secondary education and career options and goals, help them identify the coursework that they need in high school to meet those goals, and then prepare students to successfully complete the essential components of the ICAP in the ICAP requirements. So we're going to go through those essential components a little more in detail over the next few slides. There are 5 of them, and so we'll talk through each of those and what activities can be related to each of those 5 essential components. Each year, the districts are required to report the number of students who have completed each of the components of the ICAP. So this is the ICAP reporting table that the state has put out to help districts plan what data they'll need to report. So I wanted to go through a few things and really highlight a couple of things about the reporting table to help you understand just how to use your career information system and what the data is really telling us. So you'll see here in the top left-hand corner that there is a column for ICAP activities, whether or not ICAP activities can be completed outside of your primary CIS. And the CIS is your career information system. So I know districts have a lot of different career information systems that they're using. It might be the Iowa State map, it might be Zello, Navigator, it could be Naviance. I know districts are using a lot of the different approved career information systems. At Linn-Mar, we were using Naviance prior to this school year, and this year we just switched over to Zello. And if anybody has questions about why we made that switch or specific questions about career information systems, I'm happy to talk through those at the end. So you'll notice the first thing that you really need is the number of student accounts that are created. And those are reports that you can easily run in any of the career information systems. That's a requirement of the systems, is that you're able to pull reports from them. The second one is the number of 4-year plans that 8th graders have completed. The third, how many parent signatures are stored in the cumulative file. So even if your students complete a 4-year plan on whatever your career information system is, you should really have a copied plan in their cum file that is reviewed at your 5-year review for the district. And so if you just need to have documentation of those completed plans with a parent signature included. And then the fourth thing that you have to use your career information system is when students are in high school, they need to review and revise their ICAP. So those are the only things that you have to complete within the career information system. Many of you have very robust career information systems if you're using Zello, Naviance, or Navigator, and some counselors are concerned that MAP isn't quite as robust. So You could certainly use MAP all 4 years, or we can talk through some options about how you can add on to what MAP provides for you. So just know only those first 4 components need to be completed in your career information system. The rest of the components, as long as you're able to document who has completed these components, then you can meet the requirements outside of your career information system. So I have some tips on how you can keep track of this, but you'll notice the rest of the things, the next 3 are student career goals, students who have identified a post-secondary education and training options, students who have met individually with a team member, and this can actually be done in a small group if you're able to kind of have individualized conversations within those small groups. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the last 5 pieces of this are the 5 essential components from the ICAP. So we'll talk about what different activities you can use and how you can track student completion. So in my mind, I think of your ICAP lessons as tier 1 interventions. Every student should be getting the ICAP lessons related to your 5 essential components. So if you have that MTSS mindset or understand RTI MTSS, this is a really good way to think of ICAP. Everyone should be engaging in these activities. So the first essential component of the ICAP is self-understanding. And oftentimes we think of this as students completing career interest inventories, personality assessments, other measures to learn more about themselves and then connect that to their career. So another piece of this that you'll see here that says activities include engage in reflective activities. So students should not only do the assessment, but think about how does that relate to me? Are those things true about me? Do I believe that about myself? How does that connect to the career that I'm thinking about? Does it connect to the career I'm thinking about? I don't know how many of you have students who do the pre-ACT, but on the pre-ACT, there's a career assessment before they test. And students identify the career they're interested in and then answer an interest inventory. And then in their pre-ACT report, they actually can see whether or not their career matches the interest inventory. And so when students come in and get that pre-ACT report, I often say to them, you know, it looks like maybe your career doesn't quite match your interests. Let's talk about that. And we kind of work through like what they're thinking and why that maybe didn't match. Another reflective piece that I've noticed that some students need to think about is whether or not they took the assessment seriously, or if they just put undecided or no for everything because they were disengaged from doing the activity. So that's another piece to really keep in mind. You'll notice here under the relevant resources, I've just included links to several really great interests or skills, work values, inventories that are out there. So Career One Stop is a great one. They have 3 different assessments. So they have an interest assessment, a skills assessment, and a work values assessment. And if you're familiar with the card sort or use MAP, a lot of those assessments are linked right back here to Career One Stop. So here at Linn-Mar, we try to do a different assessment every year. So maybe we do an interest assessment as a freshman. Most freshmen do that. A skills assessment maybe in 9th grade or in 10th grade, work values in 11th grade. And then we maybe go back to the interest assessment their senior year to see if that still aligns with what they were thinking about in 9th grade. So I would encourage you to use a variety of assessment tools and not just stick with the same assessment tool each year. And then have students think about how are those results similar or different, or how do they match to different careers that your students thinking about. Future Ready Iowa has an interest inventory as well. There's a 6-question assessment or a 60-question assessment. That 60-question assessment is really a lot better than the 6 questions. It's all based on the Holland Code. So the 6-question inventory just has 1 question related to each of the Holland Code areas. So just keep that in mind. If students are going to go in and take a quick assessment, that's an okay one, but 60 questions is probably going to give them a little bit better results. Again, another interest profiler through ONET. And then the 16 personalities is a Myers-Briggs type indicator. So in the past, our students did MBTI as 10th graders, and we really had a long conversation about what the Myers-Briggs said about them and their personality and the limits to the information that they're getting from the Myers-Briggs. So we talk a lot about These inventories can give you an idea or an understanding of yourself, but they're not an end-all be-all. And so we shouldn't rest all of our laurels on the results of one assessment. So definitely have those conversations about those limits and what different assessments really mean for students as you're having the discussions about their results. The next area is career information. And so career information is really having students research careers and look at the different factors. So this is exactly from code, these activities that they could do. So they should research careers, and they should be looking at information regarding wages and earnings, employment outlook, the job description, and training and educational requirements for that career. I mentioned that we've used Naviance in the past, and Naviance pulled a lot of the information that they were using from the Occupational Outlook Handbook, and we didn't feel that that was as robust as we would have liked it. So most of our students used Future Ready Iowa to supplement what was available on Naviance. We really like Zello in that they do have more robust information about careers. They have the opportunity for students to read information from someone who's in that career. So we will be using Zello for that career research now that we've switched that platform. But Future Ready Iowa is a great tool. Our Marion Economic Development Corporation also uses that and links that on their website for families in the community to learn about careers in Marion. And so if students go through their link, they'll find careers on Future Ready Iowa that are within 50 miles of Marion. So we want students to stay in Eastern Iowa and be connected to our community. So I think that's why Future Ready Iowa is so important for our students to consider using. I also included Road Trip Nation here. If you're not familiar with Road Trip Nation, this is a good resource, not only for finding career information, but also for the next component, which is career exploration. So exploration is really helping your students get experience with the career and see it in action. So you'll notice from code that the activities for this include face-to-face or virtual job tours, career days or career fairs, and other work-based learning activities. So oftentimes counselors have a harder time getting this completed for every student because they're looking at just trying to get everyone into a job shadow. Or just getting them into all of them into one certain thing, and it can be really time consuming. So I would encourage you to really use virtual career speakers when you can, or having students go out and find videos, whether it be on YouTube or Candid Career here is actually another resource that has career videos. So your students can come in to the website and do a search for a career that they're interested in. So you'll see a golf caddy. If there was someone really interested in golf, how can they use that? So this is a great tool that students can use. We're able to connect through Candid Career through Kirkwood. So I would definitely encourage students to look through career videos that way. I also have a link to Workplace Learning Connection. If you're in Eastern Iowa, you can use these, their resources for students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade to go do a job shadow or an internship. But these virtual career speakers were done starting in 2020 when we closed for the pandemic, and they just started building up their library of career speakers more and more. So great resources of actual employers in Iowa talking about careers in a variety of fields. So definitely encourage your students to check that out. If you're not familiar with the Intermediary Network, they actually have a really nice website and often offer various work-based learning activities and experiences throughout the year. So you might see announcements about different opportunities that they have if you're part of Jamie Covell's Course to College emails, but they often have weeks where they maybe feature different careers. So the intermediary networks are for us in Eastern Iowa, that is Workplace Learning Connection. And I shouldn't say Eastern Iowa, in the Kirkwood service area, we use Workplace Learning Connection as our intermediary network. They do a great job. I mentioned Road Trip Nation. Road Trip Nation also has a video library the students can use. Career One Stop has videos. I will caution you that some of the videos are very old, but definitely can be used for students who maybe are having a harder time finding a specific career. And then the Clearinghouse for Work-Based Learning can provide opportunities for your teachers to host work-based learning activities within their classroom, or maybe if you have connections to one of the programs around the state for work-based learning, you know, encouraging students to get involved in those would be a great way for them to apply skills to working with employers in the community. And then I just put this resource for Edpuzzle out here. I've used videos for students to maybe learn about apprenticeships or other things in the past, and I put them on Edpuzzle so that I can make sure that students are actually watching the video and are required to respond to questions about the video as they go along. So that just lets me know that they truly did watch the whole video and that they were understanding the content that they had. So that's a resource if you are trying to figure out how to track student completion. They would have to watch the same video, or you'd have to upload a few different videos for students to watch if you were going to use Edpuzzle to track their completion. I would also maybe have them do a reflection tool about the career exploration piece so that they can say what they learned from that experience or other information about their interaction with maybe somebody who's in that career. So other things that you could do are having them interview someone who's in a career that they're interested in, or having them go find out more information and finding a family member, talk to them about their job, even if it's not something that they're interested in, to talk about what their experience was like to get into the career that they're in. And yes, I will share these slides as we get towards the end of the slides. The fourth component is post-secondary exploration. And again, these can be through face-to-face or virtual site or campus visits, thinking about career, employment, or college fairs, visiting with recruiters and representatives of post-secondary education and training. I encourage students to use a variety of resources to explore colleges. And so College Raptor, College Board are my two favorites. Campus Tours is a interactive website, so students can go and do an interactive tour of campuses that are part of this Campus Tours. There are also some, if you have the VR goggles, there are some Google Campus Tours that students can go on. I know that not all districts have those. That's something that we've used at Linn-Mar in the past, where students could, during our signing day, if they were underclassmen, they could come and check out colleges using those VR goggles. I also just put a couple other options here. So Earn and Learn Iowa. So if you have a student who's not thinking about college and thinking about apprenticeships, I definitely encourage them to use the Earn and Learn Iowa site to look at different apprenticeship opportunities, research those, find out what kind of things that they need to do to get into the apprenticeships that they're thinking about. And then if they're thinking about the military, they can find out about training opportunities through the COOL sites. So if you haven't seen the COOL sites, this is where they can get credentialing through the military that they're involved in. So I'm just looking at the Army one, they do have some information about how to use the tool. But if you wanted to find out about different MOS opportunities that students have, they can come in and kind of read about the different careers that they might have within the military. So if they wanted to get credentials in plumbing, for example, they could come in and read more about becoming a plumber. So they would be able to go out and read all about what kind of entrance they need into the military. Excuse me. So Army Reserve, National Guard both have plumbers that they can go in and get credentialing in. So we don't want to be only talking about college. We want them to know about these other post-secondary pathways that they could get into as well. And then the fifth component is career and post-secondary decision. And I would say this one's probably the one that most people have a hard time kind of figuring out what to do, but it's not just them like deciding their senior year. There should be things that they're doing that lead up to their decision. And so if you're looking at code for these essential components, you'll see there are a lot of activities that students can do. So engaging in admission or placement exams. So if you're high school does ACT testing for all 11th graders. That would check this box. Practicing entrance applications or documents, or actually doing the entrance application or document. Working on job applications, resumes, or cover letters. Completing financial aid and scholarship applications. Students can do a scholarship application every year of high school. There are scholarships for every grade level. So that's an activity that you could do with students. Helping students look at award letters and review the completion requirements for different post-secondary options. So helping them find a four-year plan on a college or university website. Practice interviewing, writing a resume. So writing an activities resume would be a good one that they could start doing. And I know I'll give that plug for ICAN. They have a great activities resume format that students can use to start that starting their freshman year. So our students start a resume in 8th grade, and then they redo their resume and update that and look at interviewing questions that they might be asked during their junior year. I put a link to Flipgrid. If you're not familiar with Flipgrid, students can record themselves answering questions and then post them. So for Flipgrid, it's really easy for you to go just put in one question and a student answers that question, and then you add another question, and they can just maybe do 2 or 3 different questions that would be typical in an interview so that they can practice that, and then you can give them feedback about their video. And with more and more interviews happening over Zoom and different things happening over Zoom, that's a good experience for them as well. I also just put a couple links to some resources for financial aid. So Form Your Future has FAFSA information, and then the NCAN resources as well. One of the other components is in ICAP that I mentioned is that students should be meeting with someone in the high school to talk about their plan each year. And so here at Linn-Mar, we do individual meetings with every student in grades 9 through 12. So I did put a few meeting documents that you can use or copy if you want. I'll show you the 9th grade one. The 9th and 10th grade ones look very similar. But you'll see here when we meet with students, I was just deleting things and put an equal sign instead. We put in their name and the date of the meeting. So then if a student says, I've never met with my counselor, I can say, well, actually we met on this date to talk about like your GPA, how many credits you have, anything that you failed. We talk about retaking classes and what's required for graduation. Then we talk about their post-high school options and their plan. So if a student's undecided, we talk about how they can explore, or if they are thinking about a certain career, then we talk about their post-secondary options for getting that career. On this, we've included links to our counseling website, our course pathways document, which is something that we created with Medco, our Economic Development Corporation. And essentially what these do are, if a student's interested, I have had students interested in architecture. So if a student tells me they're interested in architecture, construction, or engineering, they can use this document to find out what high school classes do we have at Linn-Mar, what CTE coursework could they do while they're in high school, and then careers that are in our area that students could consider for after high school, including the different pathways that they'll have to complete. So if they just want to look at a certificate and diploma, here's some options: associate's degree and then bachelor's degree. And then median salary information. And this median salary information is from Future Ready Iowa. You'll also see up here that we have our job shadow and internship information, and there's a hot link here that will take them to Workplace Learning Connection to look at the internship and job shadow opportunities. And we also have a link directly to our Kirkwood Career Academy. So if a student's interested in ACE, they can learn more about the program and then come back in and let us counselors know that that's something that they want to engage in. Also on here, again, we're job shadows and internships. We just definitely keep promoting that information about military and apprenticeships, and I link that information from ICAN for students to look at. There are some career videos for the apprenticeships on the ICAN website, so that's a great place for students to research some more. The college search tool is College Board, information about testing. We have some students, even in 9th grader, who are already starting to think about testing, or they've never heard of the ACT. And so this is just kind of an awareness piece. And then we remind them about the RAI, the Regent Admissions Index, and how that formula works. For some students, we go and do the RAI, especially in 10th grade, if it's kind of depending on what time in 10th grade, and we kind of do a mock, use the calculator for a mock situation. And then our just general admissions requirements for students to consider outside of the RAI. Like I said, 10th grade's similar. The grade level planning checklist, this will actually take you to a folder with different checklists for each grade that we created this year. The senior planning forms are from Gear Up. And so as you're talking with students and they are telling you about their post-secondary plans, this is, Iowa College Aid put these together for Gear Up schools a couple of years ago. And so this is a tool that I've started using with seniors as they tell me about their plans, so we can make sure that they're completing the different steps for that opportunity. So this particular checklist is for community college students and the different things that they'll need to complete for community college. Let's see. I also put a couple of links to some other resources that are related to individual student planning or individual learning plans. So the Department of Labor has an individual learning plan resource where they just talk about things that students should be considering each year of high school. So that could be something that you use to create your own ILP that you're using with students. The Chicago resource is actually all of the lessons that they do. So scope and sequence for middle school and high school related to college and career planning. I thought this was awesome. There's a ton of links in here and just more lessons and tools that you can use. So if you're wondering how to complete something, you can always come in here and check out those resources as well. You can never have too many resources in my mind. And then the last thing is an ICAP template for the University of, or for Missouri, the state of Missouri. And so this template has a checklist to make sure students are completing all their course requirements, and then it just goes through what their plans are for after high school as well. So I'd encourage you to check that out. I will mention with the 9th and 10th grade meeting documents that I was a 9-10 counselor before this year. So we actually would share that with the student and the parents and just have a quick note to say, hey, we met with your student today to talk about post-secondary planning. If you have any questions, feel free to reach back out to us. And oftentimes I didn't hear anything from the parent, but other times I'd have parents that say, oh, thank you so much. Or, hey, you know, we've been talking about this at home. What other resources or what information do you have that you could share with us? And it's just a great way to connect with those parents about their plans, their students' plans. Okay, so I mentioned tracking all of this information. So last year at Limar, we used Schoology for our students. We use Schoology for our students now, but last year, students were having a lot of trouble getting into Naviance. So we actually ended up creating a Schoology class that students would have all of the things that they had to complete for last year right on Schoology, and they had to submit their assignments through Schoology so we know that they had completed them. So you'll see here, this is our class. The class is archived, so I can't, and I'm not going to show you our gradebook because it has student names in it. But basically what I could do is I could set these up as graded assignments, and then I could see who is missing things, and I could follow up with them to say, you're missing, you didn't turn this in, or you didn't complete that, you only got part of it done. And then I could also figure out how many students completed each of the assignments. So when I was doing my reporting at the end of the year, it was really easy for me to pull how many students had completed each component. So this work values assessment was associated with that self-understanding. We used a job shadow video for students to understand how to apply for a job shadow or an internship. And so we use that, and then success in the new economy. If you haven't seen this video, it just talks about student debt and what students really need to prepare for a career in the 21st century. And so it's a pretty good video. I did only have part of the video show. It's pretty long, so I cut down just important parts that I thought that they needed and put that on Edpuzzle, and then had some questions built in. So students had to watch the whole thing. So part of the work values assessment, they did a reflective activity where they talked about the career that they were interested in and more information about that career. So that was the career information. The job shadow and internship video, and the success in the economy is the career exploration video. And then they did a post-secondary scavenger hunt for their post-secondary exploration. So they actually had some questions that they had to find out the answers to and submit on the post-secondary scavenger hunt, just to learn about different opportunities that that we have in Iowa. And it was a Google form that they submitted. So I can put a link to that form in the slides. And then they also did a college search and then updated their course plan. So I had them do all of those things in Schoology. I also created a Google Classroom specifically for this presentation, so you could kind of see what this would look like for people who are Google Classroom schools. We are not Google Classroom schools, so I created this on my personal page. Our elementaries use this, but we don't. So you'll see here that I posted multiple assignments that students would do and submit. So the first one was an interest inventory, and then they watched a career video. They learned more about post-secondary pathways. What is college is about, you know, there's a video that Iowa College Aid put out many years ago about the different pathways that could be included in college. So at Limar, we have a lot of students who go on to post-secondary education. We're at about 75 to 76% of students who move on to college. So they 2-year or 4-year institution. And so we want them to think about all of the pathways and not just college, because our graduation rate from college isn't spectacular like most schools. So we just want to make sure they're choosing the best route for them depending on their career goals. And then just a couple other things that they'll turn in, like what video did you watch on Candid Career? Give more information about the video. And then they also had to do a resume. So with the resume, I actually created a template for them to create a resume through a Google Doc. And it just made a copy of that resume for them to fill in with their information. If students were doing that now, we would have them do that on Zello and not through Google Classroom. But if you were looking at ways to supplement what your career information system had, you could put different things on Google Classroom, and then you could see when things got turned in. At a school with 600 freshmen, it's just really hard to keep track of everybody. So it was nice to have a tool where I could just run a report to find out who hadn't completed things. Okay, so I am also very much into data and making things align with the ISCA national model. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of understand how this fits in the ISCA national model. So you'll notice on each of the components that I had before that I put the ISCA student standards that were aligned with this component of ICAP on each of the slides. And this could help you as you're doing your lesson planning to figure out what components do you do while students are in high school to make sure that all of the components are met, or all the student standards are met from kindergarten to 12th grade. And again, with the standards, those aren't all going to be covered every year. So students just need to have exposure to them at some point in their educational career. The other piece that is important to have is an annual calendar. So this just lets your staff and administration know when you're planning to do different lessons and activities related to college and career. My lights turn off automatically. So sorry if you are wondering what I'm doing over here. Also time tracking. So a lot of counselors talk about doing their other duties as assigned. Maybe they're doing lunch duty, or they have hallway duty or something throughout the day. I think time tracking is really important for you to use to help advocate for time in the classroom or to do small groups. So if you're able to show them how you're using your time, sometimes they don't realize how much time you really are doing those non-counselor duties. So that's a great way to advocate for yourself. The other thing that I would encourage is having an annual student outcome goal related to post-secondary planning. So most schools, if you're aligning to the ISCA national model, you should have at least 2 student outcome goals. And one of them, if you're a high school counselor, could be related to post-secondary planning. So here are some ideas of goal areas that you could consider. So when you collect data, you could look at what's your FAFSA completion look like? How many students and what students are applying for job shadows and internships? What's your post-secondary enrollment rate? So how many students are saying that they've applied and how many are actually, or that they're going to college and how many are actually showing up there? That's easy to find as well. ECT and SAT participation and students enrolled in AP courses or dual enrollment. So all of those things could be directly related to your ICAP lessons because you're teaching about those things in your ICAP lessons, right? You can teach about ACT prep or how to sign up for the ACT. You can teach about taking college credit in high school as part of their four-year planning. So really think about how these lessons can relate to your student outcome goals, and I think that's one way that you can advocate that you get in the classroom and make sure these lessons happen. I also think it's important to consider MDSS, so understanding the tiered system. And I just created, I have this for all of the domains, but I just pulled out our college and career MTSS form just so you can kind of see what we do at each level to help students. And I think this just helps you kind of chunk up the things that you're doing and how you might support students while they're in high school on college and career planning. So definitely check this out. I will note that ICAN is a tier 3 resource that we often refer our students who really need more support with FAFSA out to ICAN. I am FAFSA trained now, and a couple of our other counselors are also FAFSA trained. So those are things that we can do. But our other counselors don't have time to sit down with the student and do a full FAFSA. So oftentimes they would refer out to ICAN. I've also just linked a blank MDSS document here. So it will force you to make a copy of this document. And it's essentially this, but it has all 3 domains on it. So if you're a school counselor, this is a good resource just to kind of show your administrators all of the things that you do. Also another really great advocacy tool. Another thing that I forgot that I hyperlinked on here is there is a new ISCA model website that you can use to actually track your data and your time. And it's really nice once you log in. I have to remember if I updated this with my new name. I'm probably not going to be able to log in while you guys are here. No. So if you log in, they have a really nice time tracking tool that does it 15 minutes at a time. So when you go in and log your time, it's actually going to automatically use the current time that you're at, but you can change it so that it'll track your time in 15-minute increments. So if you were using the spreadsheet before that ISCA has put out, that time tracking tool is actually really awesome because it just does your calculating for you and puts in the time in the 15-minute chunks for you. So you're not just putting 1 in each of the columns if you've used that before. It tallies it all for you. So check out that website. You do have to be an ISCA member to use it, so you'll log in with your ISCA login. So I apologize, I couldn't show that to you. Another tiered intervention is just the whole school interventions that you can use to go beyond what you're doing in the classroom. So if you are a course to college school, you are pretty familiar with a lot of these things, but if you're not a course to college school, I would encourage you to consider that through Iowa College Aid. And it's really easy to just become a partner school. And there's not a lot more that if you're already doing all of this stuff, you're already doing everything that a partner school would need to do. You just get free resources. So take advantage of the free resources that are out there. And the weekly calls are great just to hear about what other people are doing. But I wanted to give you some other ideas beyond the course to college. So one of the things that we've been talking about doing is a signing day for our apprenticeships. So giving them a little more advertising so more students know what an apprenticeship is and how to get into one. We also do a 9th grade first day of school. So our very first day of school, only 9th graders are in our building. So they learn about everything related to high school. They got into Zello for the first time on the first day of school. We talked about success in high school and things like that. So having that day is really awesome. Again, our high school is huge, so it's really nice for our students who are coming from 2 different middle schools to come together, meet each other without having the pressure of having the other 1,500 students in our building that day. So that would be considered ICAP because you're preparing them for what high school is going to be like. Our course registration presentations that we do in 8th through 11th grade, we typically create videos for them to watch during homeroom or different sessions with teachers. And then we know that they're all getting the same information about course registration. I haven't mentioned 8th grade a lot. 8th grade at Lamar has a whole class. It's called High School Prep, and they go through all of the ICAP requirements. They do their 4-year planning there, and then they also do study skills and career research more in depth. They research like 8 careers, I think. They research colleges. So there's just a lot that they do in that class. It's a quarter-long class that they do. Every 8th grader does. Tier 2, small groups to think about. Consider teaching ACT and SAT test prep. It doesn't have to be specific to those tests, but I found that students just really need to learn about testing skills and aren't quite sure how to approach the test. So that's kind of what we spend our time doing is practicing or talking about the different skills that they can use. And then I ask them to go out and do the practice test for that section after we've talked about that. So then we can reflect on how did that go? What did you learn from your practice and things like that. You can also do college and career planning for underserved students. So if you have a group of students that you know are really thinking about college and just need extra support, they can kind of be a team and work together. I've done a lot of study skills and executive functioning groups. I think sometimes we forget about our high achieving students, that sometimes they don't have these skills when they're going on to college. And so we want to make sure that they're prepared for what college is going to bring for them. All students need them, honestly, not just our low performing and our really high performing students, but really all students. And sometimes we forget that when they're in high school. We expect them just to know all of these things. And if you're a counselor, you know that they haven't quite developed all of those skills quite yet. I just had those whole school interventions on here again. So I told Britt I was editing these right before we started. So some resources that are really good. I have here the school counseling, Hatching Results for Secondary School Counseling. This book is amazing. It's like $30, $30, $40. If you do not have this book yet, please do get it. They just have so many ideas for things that you can do in your building and so many templates online. If you go to Hatching Results, they have a whole bunch of resources. I actually put the resource link in here of tier 1 resources. So you'll see here a mentor reflection sheet. There are course planner documents, FAFSA videos, freshman connection information. Like this is just the resources for this book. So the book obviously has more information in it, and then you can use all of these templates that they include in the resources handout or online appendix for the book. So, and those are free for anyone. You don't have to have the book to get to these resources, but it's really helpful to know how they've used the resources at their school by reading the book. The second thing that I have is the MTSS guide. This is also a really good resource. We're just helping you kind of figure out how to collect data about the things that you're doing to help support your program. And yeah, it has a lot of templates to use as well. So definitely MTSS stuff is awesome. I also just linked our ISCA website, the career site. It just has a ton of different links to different career resources. ICAN's website, of course. NACAC, which is the Association for College Admissions Counselors, has a curriculum that you can use. EverFi has free curriculum that counselors can use for college and career planning. The Scale research site. If you've ever been in a presentation with me before, I always show people this website because I think it doesn't get used enough. So this is from ISCA. And what they do is they take all of their ramp applications and they pull resources from the ramp applications for you to use. So when you apply for ramp, you have to include all of your lesson plans. You have to include your entire small group curriculum and your pre and post tests. So all of this stuff gets thrown out, or not thrown out, but put out on the Scale research site for you to go and use. So let's say that you want to do lessons on college readiness and you really want to do a small group. I would recommend not doing the years, but then you can click view all. And you can see everyone who has done a small group, or I guess core curriculum showed up here too, related to I must have clicked everything, sorry. Career development for core curriculum and small group. And when you apply for ramp, you designate what each of those these categories your information falls under. And then you can go in and see their core curriculum. So Abraham Lincoln High School, I can find out about 10th grade. I have my TSAT. Now what? 9th grade success for academic planning. Those two things are related to the ICAP. So I could come in and I can use this lesson at my school. It also has their perception data. So that would be their pre-test, post-test. So these are really awesome tools to use and to understand what you can do in your classroom. So this is their whole lesson plan for that. So great resource. Yeah, I just have the link to the Hatching Results book. If you want to go out and buy that, I recommend it. Trish Hatches. So just has a ton of resources on our website. And I think that is the end of my slides. Does anyone have questions? I'm going to share this so you all have it. I guess my biggest takeaway for all of you is to just really think about how can you add on to what you're already doing, or how can you use other resources that maybe aren't integrated into your career information system to help students get the things that they need to know at your school. And know that you're not tied to your career information system. I think seeing this reporting table just reminds us that really the only things that we have to do on the career information system is creating their 4-year plan. And then you can use any host of resources that you know about. And there's more than just what I showed you. I don't want to just keep throwing, I can throw resources probably at you all day long. But go beyond what's just in your career information system. Sometimes it's not always going to meet your needs. And I know a lot of counselors who use MAP get frustrated that they don't have a lot of different resources. So find what works for you, create a lesson. It doesn't even have to be one of the things I showed you. You can create your own lesson. Or what better activity than actually having students do an actual values card sort rather than doing the one online. When they're able to do it on their desk, maybe in front of them, maybe that works for them better because they're a tactile learner. So think about what your student population looks like and how they learn best, and then adapt to them. Online resources aren't the end all be all either. But as long as you can keep track of who's completed different things, you're meeting the ICAP requirements. So I'll stick around if you have questions or comments or any of that. And if you also, I'll put my email in here. If you have questions about what we're doing for different things, or hey, you mentioned this, but I didn't see a link for it, definitely email me and let me know that I promised something and didn't do it, because I'm thinking that I did that a little bit earlier and I might forget. So let me know how I can help.
Thank you so much, Sheryl, for sharing your time. And these are a lot of great resources. And thanks for plugging the resources ICAN offers. I put in that activities resume link, and we are here for support as well. Anytime you need a tier 3 reference, we're happy to help. So
yeah, and using your printed guides are good too. So I hand out that apprenticeship guide to students all the time. We also use the college planning guide with our 10th graders as they were, to give them an idea about schools. use the net price calculators. I don't think students use those enough. Those are another good resource that I didn't put on there, but there's just so much out there.
So I want to thank you for spending your time. I want to thank everyone for joining us. The recording will be available, and I will link Sheryl's slides to the recording on both the ISCA and ICAN websites. That will probably happen tomorrow, late morning, but we'll call it an afternoon and let everyone get on with their day. So thank you all so much and have a great evening.